Okay, got an XJ Cherokee 1996, 5-speed, 2-door, all-wheel drive. Developed a pretty serious squeak in the front end. I wasn't sure what it was. At first I thought it sounded for all the world like a belt slipping. But then I realized it only happened when it was rolling. And I tried to diagnose it with a mechanic's stethoscope and I couldn't narrow it down between the U-joints in the drivetrain, since it's got some in the axle itself, and of course in the drive shaft to the front differential. So I'll show you a little trick to let you figure it out easily. Okay, just have to get it up enough to get one wheel off. So you'll see this, since I don't have a locker, this will spin. And then the trick is listening for whether or not the squeaks are in sync with the drive shaft or the axle. So, okay, now the trick is to see if the squeaks are synchronized to this set of U-joints or to that set of U-joints. So I'm going to show you the front drive shaft as I turn. And you notice you see how they're synchronized to this drive shaft. So we found our culprit. Okay, I've decided to replace the drive shaft rather than rebuild it because it's been rebuilt once already, maybe 10-15 years ago, 50 to 70,000 miles ago. So just gonna go with all new this time. Okay, your main tool at this point is just an 8mm. I'm using a 1/4-inch drive because it's smaller, gives me more access. You can see that the drive shaft is of course turning. All I have to do to stop that is to wedge my knee or anything else against the wheel, and it should prevent it from turning. Okay, so take them out one at a time. And this is where it's always a good idea just to lay the two parts side by side, make sure they are the same length, they look the same form factor. You can see there's some subtle differences in the slip yoke and such, but essentially really pleased with the way this looks. I think it'll be up to the job. It's got replaceable, and it's got C-clips so that the U-joints can be replaced. Not all do. Some are pressed in, which makes replacing them in the future a real problem. This should be an OEM quality unit for considerably less. It came out of the box a little scraped up, but hey, it's a Jeep, so who cares? Okay, next step, I'm going to knock the big chunks out anyway. Clean up this interface to the U-joints. They just have some accumulated crud from four-wheeling and just general life in general. So figure cleaning them up can only be a good thing. They don't have to be surgically clean at all. And you're really worried about the interface areas here. There's some niches here where it's stuff does collect. It probably won't matter at all, but knock the worst of it out so you get a good interface, and do it on the clips that come off as well. A little bit of Loctite to the bolts. All right, slide the back in, slide the front in. It's got a little ledge that should hold it in place up front long enough to get the to get the little clip on and the bolts in. Okay, rotate and repeat. Wouldn't tighten any of them down until they're all in place. Make sure everything is seated and centered nicely, so you don't end up with any driveline vibrations. Trick here is to make sure that the you can see the U-joint is up against the stop on that yoke, and if I spin it around here, it's the same there. So at this point you can safely tighten all four down, and then we'll move to the back. Place the back into position as much as you can. It'll be a little bit of wiggling around. I'm pulling it back towards the back of the car to get the flanges to seat down, and of course that has opened up this slip joint, which is exactly why it's there. So the front axle can move up and down, which of course changes this length. And for what it's worth, this car has 3 inches of lift, which is capable of being dealt with a standard unaltered drive shaft, so you don't have to get a special unit. If you go taller, you do. So now just get the bolts back in and tighten down. Again, get them all in, started, before you tighten any of them down. And when you're done, it looks something like this. A new, shiny new, only slightly scratched up drive shaft. And even better, no squeaks at all. And a little bit of a postmortem on this old unit. You can hear the problem. It is not supposed to look like that. You can see where the inner part of this complicated constant velocity joint that forms this end has broken apart, and that was undoubtedly the cause of all the noise in this thing as it rotated. It's kind of amazing it wasn't a lot worse. So not rebuilding this ended up being a great idea, because I would have had to replace this entire yoke assembly to get this thing fixed. It would have cost me more than the new unit. So you probably want to look at that when you're diagnosing your front drive shaft, to see if a rebuilt, or at least what parts you would need if you are going to rebuild it.